Hare Krishna, dear devotees. Thank you for joining the Wednesday class, taking time from your busy schedule. If you remember, the last session, what I had discussed on was focused on what Arjuna is saying, either making a statement or asking a question in Bhagavad Gita. And I was going sequentially through the various chapters. So we are going to continue from where we left off. We left off at the end of the second chapter and the beginning of the third chapter. That's where we'll start. Before I continue, I would like to quickly sing a short song on Jai Radha Madhava and do the Mangalacharan prayers. But even before that, I have to take care of a few logistics, putting some messages on Facebook and YouTube channels. So please bear with me. So let us sing Jai Radha Madhava. This song was very dear to our founder Acharya of this movement, Srila Prabhupada, Sri Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. Jaya Radha Madhava, Jaya Kunja Bihari, Jaya Radha Madhava, Jaya Kunja Bihari, Jaya Gopijana Vallabha, Jaya Girivaradhari, Jaya Girivaradhari, Jaya Yashodanandana, Jaya Braja Janaranjana, Jaya Yashodanandana, Jaya Braja Janaranjana, Jaya Yamuna Tiravanachari, Jaya Kunja Vihari, Jaya Yamuna Tiravanachari, Jaya Kunja Vihari. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, 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 Hare Hare, Hare Ramo, Hare Ramo, Ramo, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, 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 Hare Hare, Hare Ramo, Hare Ramo, Ramo, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna. Now we are going to go through the pranam prayers, Mangalacharan prayers. So this will help us invoke auspicious blessings from our previous acharyas, from Sri Radharani, from the Guru Parampara and Mahaprabhu Panchatattva. Om Ajnanatimirandhasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Sri Guruve Namaha. Sri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayyam Dadati Swapadantikam. Vande Aham Sri Guru Sri Yutapadakamalam Sri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Sri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathanvitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Sri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Sri Vishakam Vitamscha. He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dina Bandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namastute. Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Haripriye. Vancha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Jai Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhara Sri Vasadi Gaur Bhaktavinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ramo 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ramo 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 Hare Hare. So we'll start now from chapter 3. And again, I'll repeat it. Focus is on what Arjuna is saying, either making statements or asking questions. What did we cover till now? A quick summary of what we covered, and then we'll continue from chapter 3. So in the first chapter, Arjuna, in verse 21 to 23, he was ready to fight. He was in a fighting spirit. We often hear that Lord Krishna puts him into that pitiful situation through his Yog Maya. Yog Maya, it can act in different situations. It can create events. It can, I'm sorry, not it, so C can act through events. C can act through in front of us. She can ask someone to say something to us. She can act various ways. Of course, she is always under the control of Lord Krishna. Lord Krishna says something, although he was in fighting spirit, which puts Arjuna in Maya. He says, behold Partha, O Partha, behold all the Kurus assembled here. By that statement from Krishna, Arjuna is put into Maya, because now he's not seeing enemies, he's seeing relatives, both on his side, on the other side, right? And then Arjuna is a knowledgeable person, so he uses scriptures to kind of make justifications that why he should not fight. Okay, he gives number of justifications, and while he was going through these justifications from verses 20 to 45 in first chapter, as well as in the verse second chapter 4 to 8, he is actually essentially making he's in a dilemma what he should do. Either he should not fight, or he fights, but then he lets the opposite side, the people who are worthy of his worship, his guru and Vishmadev, let them kill Arjuna, or he should do his duty. Okay, but he looks at the duty in a different angle. He says that I will have to kill them and to win the royal kingdom. He's thinking that he's doing this to win the royal kingdom and enjoy the royal kingdom. Right? So these are the three dilemmas. He's kind of, he doesn't know what to do. He's in a fix. Then he asks Lord Krishna. He accepts Lord Krishna as a spiritual master and asks him to instruct. Right? That's in the second chapter. And then Lord Krishna takes him to a 100,000 feet view where there is something which is permanent, and that's your soul, and everything else is temporary. Right? Your body, your relatives whom you are looking at, birth, death, all those are temporary. And if someone is taking birth, he has to die, right? But the soul never dies. And then, so that is the Sankhya portion, okay? And as part of the Sankhya portion, he also tells that although soul is permanent, but since soul is in a body, soul has to engage the body in its duty, okay? Whatever the duty of the body. And that's the Sankhya portion. And then he explains the same thing through the Buddhi Yoga. Means once you understand the soul, then, and you understand everything is temporary, but still the soul is in the body. So how you apply intelligence to engage the body in the right way. And that is where Lord Krishna talks about Vyavasayatmika Buddhi. Vyavasaya means business, Atmika means soul, the business of soul, which is one-pointed devotion to the Supreme or Lord Krishna. Right? Somewhere they are in the around 54th or 53rd verse, Lord Krishna is saying such people have very steady intelligence and they're transcendental, they don't have any anxiety, and Lord Krishna gets attracted basically. And not Lord Krishna, sorry, Lord Arjuna gets attracted. Because he is in a dilemma. And here Lord Krishna is talking about people who are not in anxiety, right? So he asks, like, what kind of people those are? How do they talk? How do they sit? Right? How do they walk? Because he wants to identify such people. And Lord Krishna says, such people, whatever they are engaged in, they're always satisfied. Satisfaction is how you will know them. Okay. They are satisfied souls, whatever they're engaged in. And then Lord Krishna keeps on going there in the second chapter, and he says that a person, so he makes some important statements there. One is that however intelligent you are, however educated you are, senses are so strong that it will pull you. Because at the end of the day, the way we work, we are, although common contemporary world will tell you, our rational faculties should always be at a higher position. Unfortunately, we are not constituted that way. If you look at the hierarchy of the senses being at the lowermost, sense objects being lowermost, then senses, then on top of that mind, then on top of that intelligence, then on top of that ultimately comes the soul. The desires comes from soul. So we are actually driven by desires. We are not driven by rational faculties. Rational faculties we use to achieve our desire. Because if rational faculty had to be the highest, we would become robots. God did not make us to be robots. They made us so that we have desires, we fulfill our desires. Right? That is at the heart. That is what soul has. Soul has desires. And that is what drives us. So the question is that there Lord Krishna says that because they don't have that higher taste, that is why the roaming senses pulls them away towards the lower tastes. Even though they are very smart, they are very intelligent. Because at the end of the day, we are driven by our soul. And soul have desires. Whatever desire soul has, it will push us in that direction. Okay. So there Lord Krishna is saying the people who meditate on him get that higher taste, and then they are able to relieve the lower tastes. And then, so the main purpose of intelligence and education is to ultimately understand this world is that our body and this world is a fallible world. And so it is better to engage in this world in a detached fashion, engage with this world in a detached fashion, and endeavor to build that higher taste on Krishna. And in that journey, there will be struggle, but we have to know, I mean, if you want to achieve something highest, right, you have to pay something for it. And that struggle is what you are paying through, right? So that's where the second chapter ends. And now we will move to the third chapter. So in third chapter, Arjuna is asking, so here it is, the first verse. Arjuna is saying, "O Janardhan, O Kesava, why do you want to engage me in this ghastly warfare if you think that intelligence is better than fruitive work?" So, in the second chapter, as part of that Sankhya, there are two portions in that Sankhya in the second chapter. One is the distinction between soul and body. And then there is also a portion towards the end in that Sankhya portion, where Lord Krishna is talking about, he's sort of mixing the duties and fruitive aspect. Right? He's saying that you must fight to protect the religious principle. For religious principle, he means protect the religious principles. It does not matter whether you win or lose. That is the duty aspect. But then he also says that if you do this and if you die, then you go to heavenly kingdom. If not, then you enjoy the royal kingdom. So that fruitive aspect is also there. And then he also says that if you don't fight, then the other generals will think that, you are no good, basically. You ran away from the battlefield. That is also fruitive aspect, right? So sort of mixes that. And so the way Arjuna understands that is the fruitive work, right? And then he also talks about the Buddhi Yoga, the intelligence. While he's describing the intelligence, in many places, he mentions about meditating. Now, whenever someone describes to you meditation, you normally people in this world, they conjure up a yogi sitting in Himalayas and meditating on something. And not that while you are working in your day job, you can still meditate. And that is that the whole Bhagavad Gita is about that art of meditating while you are engaged in your day-to-day work. And that is what Arjuna missed. Arjuna thought meditation, or that using the intelligence, using the steady intelligence to steady your mind and then meditate, he understood that kind of yoga, going to an isolation and meditate. That is what he was thinking. And he was thinking ghastly warfare that he is going to engage in, which is, the Mahabharata was a big war. Some 1.7 billion people died in that war. It was many times bigger than Second World War and First World War. It was so big that when there was a conversation that is happening in Mahabharata between Ved Vyas and Yudhishthira Maharaj, when Ved Vyas is asking the account from Yudhishthira Maharaj, how many people died, and that's where he gives the figure, Yudhishthira Maharaj. And towards the end, when Ved Vyas said, since now you are the emperor of the world, it is your duty to go to all those kingdoms, all those states and nations, and establish whoever is supposed to rule that kingdom, because some of those kingdoms, they probably don't have anyone. So Yudhishthira Maharaj says, there are a lot of kingdoms out there that there is no man left. Who is going to rule? So many people, so many Kshatriyas died. So then Vedvyas said, okay, let the queen and the princesses, let them, rule those kingdoms, because they are also trained. Kshatranis, they are also trained. That's how this whole matriarchy process started 5,000 years back. So anyway, that's sort of trivia, but the main thing is it was a ghastly warfare, but you have to look at the purpose, right? After that, Parikshit Maharaj came, and there was establishment of principled government after that, right? So, but we normally, and that is another impetus in this Bhagavad Gita, is Lord Krishna is saying in the second chapter, right, is Arjuna, you fight to protect the religious principles without worrying about defeat and winning, right? Winning or losing. So that is the definition of duty. When you say someone is dutiful, that's what it means. It means that you do things to the letter or to the spirit without worrying so much about what will be the consequences to me and my loved ones, right? It's sort of a little bit antithetical to how the contemporary world works, because it's very much a result-driven society. It's not at all, if you look today, it's not at all a duty-driven society. It's a result-driven society, right? Lord Krishna was asking Arjuna to do that. He was asking you to do your duty, right? So that is what Arjuna is asking. If you think that intelligence is better than fruitive work, right? In meditating, use your intelligence to steady the mind and focus on you, then why are you asking me to engage in this fruitive work, this warfare? My intelligence is bewildered by your equivocal instructions. Therefore, please tell me decisively which will be most beneficial for me. Also, although the second chapter is contents of Gita summarized, if Arjuna got confused, right, 99% will get confused if they stop at second chapter. And that's the reason why we have the 16 more chapters, right? So he got confused. So this is what Arjuna is asking. Okay, if intelligence, use the intelligence to steady your mind and focus on you. That is how the way Arjuna understood. Okay, I'm saying that not what the fact is, but the way Arjuna understood based on the description of second chapter is use your intelligence to steady your mind and focus on you is what the goal is. Then why you are asking me to engage in the warfare, which he considered as fruitive work. Then Lord Krishna explains. I will just read verse 3. The Supreme Personality of Godhead said, O sinless Arjuna, I have already explained there are two classes of men who try to realize the self. Some are inclined to understand it by empirical, philosophical speculation, and others by devotional service. So where does he explain this? Empirical philosophical speculation is that Sankhya part. In the verse 39 of second chapter, where he's switching from the Sankhya to Buddhi Yoga, is the Sankhya is what happened, whatever he described before, until 238. And from 240 onwards is what is devotional service, or as it is told here, yoga. Jnana Yogena Sankhyanam, that is the Sankhya, right? And Karma Yogena Yogina. So Jnana Yoga and Karma Yoga, right? So Jnana Yoga is the process you follow to get the output of Sankhya Yoga. So Sankhya is what he described there. And Karma Yogena Yoginam is So Buddhi Yoga and Karma Yoga, how they are related is you cannot do Karma Yoga without Buddhi Yoga. So Buddhi is whatever the jnana you get from Sankhya, when you apply it, right? When you apply that to do your karma, that application of that jnana is Buddhi. So that is how Buddhi Yoga and Karma Yoga are similar. And Jnana Yoga and Sankhya Yoga. Jnana Yoga is the process. Sorry, Sankhya is the process you follow to get the jnana. Okay. So that is what Lord Krishna is saying. That is what I described. Okay. Those two processes. And what else is saying? Not by merely abstaining from work can one achieve freedom from reaction. Right. Nor by renunciation alone can one attain perfection. So here Lord Krishna is trying to answer his question. So his question about intelligence is better than fruitive work is he is sort of asking Arjuna to, by this statement in verse number 3, to rephrase. He's rephrasing his question. He's rephrasing his question. Okay. He's saying, no, that's not what I said. What I said is that there are two classes of people. One class of people understands things by Sankhya, and other class of people understands things by Buddhi Yoga or Karma Yoga. Right? Those are the two classes of people. So, but through Sankhya, the Jnana Yogis understand, right? And through Buddhi Yoga, the Karma Yogis understand, right? That is how they do. But here he's further refining this thing, saying not merely by abstaining from work can one achieve freedom from reaction. So if we think that if we stop the work, then we'll achieve freedom from reaction, that's not true, because you had been working until then. So you have some stock of reactions. You will probably not incur new reactions, right? But still there are reactions. And nor by renunciation alone can one attain perfection. And that's the reason. If you renounce, then what about those reactions what you have? They have in you, in your consciousness, in different stages. Some are in seed form, some are in prarabdha, in different stages. Those reactions are there in your consciousness. What about those? They will keep pulling you down, pulling you back to whatever you're doing. So that is what Lord Krishna is further explaining. The same thing is a clarifying verse 4. Everyone is forced to act helplessly according to quality he has acquired from modes of material nature. So that is why you cannot suddenly renounce. Therefore, no one can refrain from doing something, not even for a moment. Okay. If one who restrains the senses of action, but whose mind dwells on sense objects, you can restrain yourself from the sense of action, right? That I won't go there, I won't see this. But what about what you have seen already, what you have smelled already, what you have tasted already? They are then in your stock of consciousness, in your mind. They will keep surfacing to the mind, right? And you will have to, and Lord Krishna is saying, such a person is just deluding himself, because mind will force him to go back to that, whatever he was doing, whatever tasty thing he was enjoying. Here, Lord Krishna is saying, on the other hand, if a sincere person tries to control the active senses by the mind, he is saying, yes, instead of, so that is the difference. Restraining and controlling, although they seem same, they're actually a little bit different. Restraining means when, let us say there is a dog, okay, and there is a tree, and then you put a noose around his neck and you tie him. You restrain the dog. The dog within his circumference only is there, he cannot move anywhere. Okay. Controlling is, let us say there is a person who is holding the leash of the dog and is controlling when the dog is moving. Control involves that you are still engaged on a purpose. Okay, you have something to do and you are controlling yourself so that you're focused only on that. and you're not getting distracted. So there is a difference. Your mind is engaged in doing what you want to do. And so because your mind is engaged, so your mind is not getting distracted. Your mind is not getting distracted from the tastes of lower mode what you have, because your mind is busy. Sometimes this taste for lower mode can be very strong. So your mind has to be engaged in things which are able to counteract that. Counteract that. Okay. So that is the difference between controlling and restraint. In restraint, you are trying to say, oh, I won't go there, I won't see that, I won't smell that, I won't taste it. You're not doing anything, but you're just, trying to control yourself. Restrain yourself into doing something which you like. Okay. Controlling, on the other hand, is you're directing your mind to do something else which is beneficial to you. And thus, you are making sure that is how you are making sure your mind is not engaged in the lower modes. So you're giving it some engagement. And then begins Karma Yoga in Krishna consciousness without attachment. He is by far superior. So Lord Krishna is saying there, yes, controlling is fine because you are attached to something. That is why you had to do the restraining process. It did not help you. Now you are controlling to put your mind to something which is beneficial. But still, don't get attached to that either. Without attachment. What does it mean? It means don't get attached. Don't do your karma yoga because it promises some fruits at the end. Engage in that as a way of doing your duty. But remember, it is sort of a balancing act. It's a tug of war going on in the mind. Depending on how strong you're attached to these lower modes, your senses, doing this will be less or more struggle. So more attached you are to this, more enthusiastically and more forcefully you have to do this. Right? Perform your prescribed duty. For doing so is better than not working. One cannot even maintain one. So that is the practical aspect of it. You cannot just stop there. Your body needs food, needs shelter, needs sustenance. So you have to work. Otherwise, you have to unnecessarily depend on others. So indirectly, he was telling Arjuna that engage in your duty. Okay. Engage in your duty. He was indirectly telling your nature is different. You are a Kshatriya. What you are thinking as sannyas, you won't be able to sustain sannyas. Because sannyas means you have to beg, someone may even insult you, you have to tolerate that. A Kshatriya doesn't tolerate insults, right? Like in Bhagavatam, we read the story of Dhruva Maharaj. One insult and he, went to forest, right? So that is not going to work for you, what you are thinking, okay? And then Lord Krishna talked about the cycle of sacrifice, okay? He is actually expounding on this prescribed duty. That is why he is talking about the cycle of sacrifice, right? You do the yajna and this whole process of rain, and then it comes down, it seeds, and then it has fruits. From the seeds, you grow trees, fruits, and then you offer the fruits to the, Lord Vishnu, and then he's satisfied. And again, so that cycle of, sacrifice. And he says why you should engage in that, because that also came from me, Vishnu. Lord Krishna is the same person, right? It came from me. Then Lord Krishna is talking about the people who are self-realized. They actually don't have any duty to do because they have relieved themselves of all the sinful reactions. But still they engage in, just to set an example to others, how to engage in their duty in a detached way. Because what does it mean? What does it mean to engage in activities in a detached way? Unless a person is really detached, which only self-realized people are, you don't know. Because if you want to get somewhere, you have to know what that thing looks like. Right? You have to have some vision, some visualization of what does it look like. Right? What that person looks like, what kind of activities such a person engages in. You have to know that. Right? So that is why it is very important that self-realized souls also engage in duty, whatever, mode of nature they took birth in, like whichever, society or whichever occupation they are in. So they should keep doing that to show how to do that occupation in a detached way. Right? And he gave example of Janaka, who is Mother Sita's father, right, who used to do that. So in third chapter, he talks about that, all that. And then he says that there are, so here he is saying, even a man of knowledge acts according to his own nature, for everyone follows the nature he has acquired from the three modes. What can repression accomplish? There are principles to regulate attachment and aversion pertaining to senses and of their objects. One should not come under the control of such attachment and aversion. So when we say attachment, we should also know attachment about something we like, and attachment about, so if we dislike something, that is also an attachment, because attachment is actually a conception. So a conception can be about like, it can also about dislike, right? So raga and dvesa, right? So dvesa. So that is why both are not good, right? He is saying it is far better to discharge, because Arjuna is fighting, he's a Kshatriya, so as part of Kshatriya duty, you have to sometimes, when there's a battle, you have to kill people, right? And he did not like that fact, right? He is okay defeating people, he is not okay killing people, right? And he was attached to his respectful guru and grandfather, right? Dronacharya and Bhishmadev. So he had both these problems, and that is what was causing, all his confusion. And Lord Krishna indirectly saying that is stumbling blocks on the path of self-realization. And that is why he was relinquishing his prescribed duty, which is to fight to protect the religious principles. That is what Lord Krishna says in next verse. It is far better to discharge one's prescribed duties, even though faultily, than another's duties perfectly. Right? So whatever is your nature based on the occupation you have picked, right? You discharged those duties. Although you are not able to discharge it properly, still you do it. Okay. And while performing those duties, you may not like certain things, but still it is okay to do that. Than performing someone else's duty perfectly. What Lord Krishna is trying to say is that you may have found fault in your duty, and you think sannyasi duty is nice, you don't know. There are faults in those duties also. Right? So, therefore, try to remain in your occupation and do your duty, because engaging in someone else's path is dangerous. And somewhere else, Lord Krishna, I think in second chapter also he said, right, not doing your duty is sinful, and doing someone else's duty later in Bhagavad Gita is somewhere is saying that is sinful. Right? You cannot, like for example, the Brahmanas, they cannot become Kshatriyas. They can become, in emergency situations, they can become Vaishyas. They cannot become Kshatriyas, they cannot become Shudras. Right? So there are some restrictions there. So here, now the Arjuna's next question. So Arjuna is asking, O descendant of Vrishni, by what one is impelled to sinful acts, even unwillingly, as if engaged by force. Right? So if you remember in second chapter, Lord Krishna did not really use the word sinful, but he indirectly stated something related to that. He said, even though someone is very intelligent, but senses can be very strong and can drag him. Okay. He didn't say anything about sinful, but he did say that it can drag him. And here Arjuna is asking directly the question, dragging where? To do the sinful act. Right? So what is that thing? Lord Krishna then said in second chapter that you have to have the higher taste, right, by meditating on him. But he did not say that what is causing that person to be dragged into doing something that he should not do. Right? So Arjuna that is why asking this question. And it is also related to his situation. He is, by this time, he is now realized that he is engaged, he's trying, by not engaging in the warfare, he's committing a sinful act. And he sort of vaguely is understanding that is because of his attachment to certain things that is not ready to fight. Certain things or certain conceptions, right? He is not ready to fight. So he's asking that question. And then Lord Krishna, of course, gives an answer there that it is lust. Yeah. And he also talks about how the lust takes birth in a person. Okay. So lust takes birth when one comes in the contact of mode of passion. Right? So I think in 17th and 18th chapter, Lord Krishna is describing in detail, what are the foods, the people in these three modes, yeah? Mode of goodness, mode of passion, mode of ignorance. What do they like? What are the different work they get engaged in, right? What type of knowledge they have, what type of activity they are engaged in, right? What type of, so all those things is describing there. So when someone comes in this contact of material mode of passion, then one can get engulfed by the lust. Because what happens, material mode of passion is a mode of activity, intense activity. That is mode of passion. So when one comes in this mode, then that person is driven by intense desire. So intense desire drives that person in that mode of activity. At that time, that becomes very prominent, and whatever knowledge he had, let us say the knowledge is at this level, and ultimately, whatever he doesn't want to do is at a lower level. Because of this intense desire, the expression of intense desire, that thing comes to the same level. He starts seeing what I'm not supposed to do or what I'm supposed to do, the duty, right? And his desire comes at same level. And that is why the dilemma happens. I think there's a question there. Let me see. Let me try to. Okay, someone had a question. Oh, I only raised my hand. Okay, sorry. Okay. So it actually, they come to the same level. Okay. What the do's and don'ts, right, which your mode of goodness gives, and your desire, intense desire, they come at the same level. And so when they come at the same level, then your mind is unable to decide what to do. And in that state, your lust becomes prominent. Okay, and you could potentially, there is a chance that you could take decision based on your lust or based on your intense desire. Now, when you let it go further, right? When lust conquers your what, that concept of what you should do and what you should not do, and you engage, you continue with whatever your lust is driving you to do, your intense desire is driving you to do, it can transform them into mode of ignorance, wrath. Now you are in a stage where what you are supposed to do, what you're not supposed to do, it has taken a completely a backseat, right? If this is what is supposed to do, this hand is what's supposed to do, not supposed to do, it takes a backseat, it goes down, and this is the only thing that is prominent. That is why you will see the people who are angry or those who are in mode of ignorance, they mistakenly think what is not right is right and what is right as not right. But while people in mode of passion, they are actually in dilemma. That is why it is written in the scriptures, Vedic scriptures, that the kings, they were Kshatriyas, but their ministers normally would be, they had actually a council of ministers, but then the prominent people would be some Brahmanas, those who are in the mode of goodness, for advice. And that was the reason, basically, because kings will normally be in the mode of passion. And so you need someone to consult when you are in dilemma what you should do, who are in the mode of goodness. The Brahmanas, they are typically the Brahmanas, but the ministers, right? So anyway, which is the all-devouring sinful enemy of this world? He's not just talking about Lord Krishna, about a particular person. Okay, he's saying almost most of the people, this is what is the culprit. But even more than this is the real culprit. This is the real culprit, material mode of passion. Does that mean that we should not engage in activity? No, we have to engage in activity, right? But we have to take advice from people, those who are in the mode of goodness. Or if we are fortunate enough, we have some transcendental people, we can get advice from them, right? So here Lord Krishna then goes on explaining that this lust is present in all the strategic places of our subtle and gross body, right? The senses are in the gross body and mind and intelligence in subtle body. Right? They're everywhere, right? And so what they do, they cover the real knowledge of the person. So what is the solution? What is the solution? Solution here is, Lord Krishna is saying, in the very beginning, curb this great symbol of sin or lust. Now, in the very beginning can be interpreted in two ways. In purport, Srila Prabhupada is saying, in the very beginning means in the beginning when you take birth and you are growing up. From that stage itself, you should endeavor to put yourself, if you are fortunate under a devotee parents, then they will put you under Krishna consciousness. So you are able to curb this great symbol of sin. Right? How? By regulating the senses. By regulating the senses. Regulating meaning is same as controlling. Okay? Regulating is not restraining. Because Lord Krishna said very clearly, restraining senses don't work. But regulating works. Right? If you want to eat tasty food, don't get into the food of lower modes. You can make food like prasadam, right? You can make that tasty. Krishna likes tasty food. I mean, he also likes, roots and vegetables, right? So roots and fruits, he likes those also, but he likes tasty food also. So you can, offer them and you can honor it, right? So that is what is meant by regulating this. That works because your tongue does need tasty food, right? So you regulate it that way. Okay. So that is the first thing. That is how Srila Prabhupada is written. Here, it means that now on the spot, right? Here, actually, Lord Krishna is, when he's talking to Arjuna, he's talking about on the spot. On the spot when it comes up. Okay, so how all these things started? All these things started because Arjuna came in the mode of passion. Let me see the enemies I want to fight. And then Krishna showed him the other aspect. Behold the Kurus. Now he's in dilemma. Should I fight or not fight? Right? He sees the relatives, but he also sees his royal kingdom. What should he do? Right? He's in dilemma. He's in the mode of passion. He's in dilemma. Lord Krishna showed him the other aspect. Right? So, saying in the beginning itself, kar, the great symbol of sin. How? By regulating the senses means here, do things, take actions for the right purpose. Arjuna should have come to the battle with a conception that if he wins this kingdom, he will enjoy it. No, he is coming to the battle to protect the religious principles. The reason he should defeat Duryodhana and the other party, to make a point to the citizens of his empire that if you perform sinful acts of aggression, you will be punished. That principle, that religious principle to protect those, that is the reason he is fighting. That is his duty, not winning the kingdom. Winning the kingdom, growing your empire is not the duty of a Kshatriya. The duty of a Kshatriya is to protect the religious principles. And to do that, if he sees a neighboring kingdom, they are not following that, then fine. Yeah. Kshatriya's job is not just to protect the religious principles in his kingdom. There is no, like, this is my area, that is your area. No, that's not Kshatriya. If you see there is a neighboring area or neighboring kingdom where the king is not following the religious principles, not protecting the religious principles, oppressing the people, you have every right to go win that kingdom and make sure the religious principles are followed and protected. But that is the primary principle of a Kshatriya. And that is what Lord Krishna was correcting him. So you have to do things for the right reason. The whole Vedic scriptures, Karma Kanda, all those things are there, but people look at the fruits of the Karma Kanda. That's not the right reason. The right reason is while doing that, when the fruits come as a result of the Karma Kanda practice, that is to prove that you have done it right and the God is pleased. So to please the God is the right reason. To purify yourself is the right reason, not to enjoy those fruits. Right? Anyway, so that is the thing Krishna was trying to convey, that in the very beginning curved this great symbol of sin. So that is what he meant, that Arjuna, you should not have come to the battlefield to defeat your enemy and win the royal kingdom. You should have come to the battlefield to punish the wrongdoers and protect the religious principles. Okay, because that is the right reason, right? And then Lord Krishna is talking about the hierarchy. Working senses are superior to dull matter. Mind is higher than senses. Intelligence is still higher than mind. And soul is even higher than intelligence. So that's the hierarchy, right? Because dull matter means the sense objects, right? The sense, the dull matter, whatever things made up of dull matter, right? From there there is embedded the sense object, concept of sense object, like in flower is actually a dull matter, but there's a sense object there, smell, also sight, beautiful flower, right? So like this, there are many examples where this, but who senses it is your sense organs, which are senses, right? So that is why they are able to. So the senses sense the matter, dull matter, sense objects in the dull matter, and that is why they are superior. It's not the other way, right? Similarly, mind is able to sort of group all the sense objects into one place and associate them. So mind is doing that integrative function, right? So that is of all the senses, and that is why it's also sometimes that's quite called the sixth sense, right? So it is higher than the senses. Now, mind looks at the signals coming from senses. It also looks at the stock of your knowledge and stock of your past impressions. All this. So mind is like a mirror. It's the mirror of the soul. A soul is looking at the mirror, and the soul turns the mirror based on the desire to whichever, external or internal, to the stock of knowledge if he has to make a decision. And then that is where the intelligence comes into picture. So intelligence is therefore higher than the mind. It helps the mind figure out what to do. It is higher than the mind. But ultimately, what is the highest is the soul or the self, right? Because at the end of the day, intelligence helps you to figure out, but which intelligence you want to use will be based on your desire, right? Like Lord Krishna, he went to Duryodhana also to give him good counsel. But Duryodhana said, whatever you are telling, I completely agree with you, but I just can't follow it. And he didn't have a desire to follow it also. I just can't follow it. I'm a person who is driven by my heart. My heart is not letting me follow what you are saying, right? So that is the thing. So, and whenever we mention heart, we actually, what we mean, the consciousness, basically, the consciousness. My consciousness, because his consciousness is so impure that although he knows what is right, what is wrong, he is not able to follow what is right. Right? So, or the desire, basically, the desire. Our consciousness is nothing but our, expression of our desire. We are aware of things. We are aware of our desires, right? So, the soul is even higher than the intelligence, right? The soul is driving what intelligence he has to use. So, Duryodhana could not use his good intelligence because his desires were not good, right? So, Lord Krishna is saying, therefore, thus knowing oneself to be transcendental to material senses, mind, and intelligence, O mighty armed Arjuna, one should steady the mind by deliberate spiritual intelligence, Krishna consciousness, and thus by spiritual strength conquer this insatiable enemy known as lust. So, what is happening? This lust is in three places: senses, mind, and the intelligence. But you can use another intelligence. So this intelligence is material intelligence, but there is also spiritual intelligence, Krishna consciousness, that can be used to steady the mind. Okay. And in the fourth chapter, Lord Krishna will talk about what is that spiritual intelligence, how that helps you steadying the mind, right? And when mind is steady, then, because at the end of the day, who picks up, basically? It is the mind. But who directs the mind? It is the soul. Soul tells the mind, yes, this is good intelligence, this is bad intelligence, but this is my desire. And therefore, you don't worry about the good intelligence. You go with this bad intelligence and let's do whatever the bad intelligence is saying. So the soul uses the mind, because mind is the mirror. That mirror, he reflects towards the bad intelligence because his desire is bad. And therefore, the mind does whatever is bad. But once you have this spiritual intelligence, then it helps the mind becoming steady. because your soul is purified. Your mind is steady as a result. And therefore, it looks at both good and bad and chooses to. Its vision of the mirror, both are there, good and bad, when the mind is steady, and then it is able to choose the good intelligence. Okay? And then you can conquer the lust. Okay. Still in the third chapter. So we are going to go to the next chapter, but let me just quickly check if there are any questions in the online. If there are any questions online. Okay, there are no questions here. Okay, so I will go back to my going to chapter 4. So in chapter 4, Lord Krishna actually he's saying the personality of God, and Lord Krishna said, I instructed this imperishable science of yoga. What imperishable science of yoga? In the previous chapter, that deliberate spiritual, because intelligence depends on knowledge. Science is a body of knowledge, right? You cannot have intelligence without knowledge, right? So intelligence needs, because the Vedic conception of intelligence is based on knowledge. It is not the contemporary conception of intelligence, which is finding patterns, right? Which is also sometimes referred as intelligence, a metric given to that called intelligence quotient, right? Which is basically finding patterns. That's what they focus on. It is not about right or wrong. The Vedic conception of intelligence is more about right versus wrong. What is the right thing to do? Is much more practical definition of intelligence. So that Lord Krishna is saying, that science, that intelligence is based on whatever the science of yoga, that is the foundation of that intelligence. It is imperishable, okay, is describing, and it was first given to sun god Vyavaswan instructed to Manu, father of mankind, and Manu in turn instructed it to ISKCON. Now, one thing before I proceed, one thing to keep in mind is why this topic is so important is because what Lord Krishna says in the previous chapter is, this is a sinful enemy of the world. So it is very important to conquer this lust, not for just for Arjuna, but for all the people of the world. It will keep us disturbing us and taking us away from our ultimate path of pleasing Lord Krishna through our actions, right? It will take us away from that path. So that is why it is very important. It is very important for not just for an individual person, for the world in general, right? And that is why Lord Krishna is expounding on more. He then says that, this was received through chain of disciplic succession. Saintly kings understood it in that way, but then the succession was broken. Okay, and now I am going to tell you this same thing again. Why? Because you are my devotee as well as my friend, and therefore understand the transcendental mystery of this science. And we'll come to that point, that why a devotee will understand this. Because when we say that we understand something, right? Understanding is not an objective function. It's a subjective function, because everyone understands things in different way. One ingredient of understanding is not just the explicit knowledge, but also our past experience, right? And which is the past experience, which is subjective. That's also an important input to our understanding. And and therefore it is important that and we'll know why it is important that you um, have a why you should be a devotee, because devotees have different kinds of experiences, and that is why they're able to understand. And so once we go through this, we'll understand that why devotees can only understand it, what is the mechanics behind that, right? So Arjuna then said, of course Arjuna is asking a side question here, in which Lord Krishna will respond, and then we will move to the main topic, okay, about that imperishable science of yoga, right? So Arjuna said, the sun god Vivaswan is senior by birth to you. How to understand? In the beginning, you instructed this science to him, right? So, of course, one line of thinking is Arjuna is asking this because he is asking on behalf of, the people. He's not, because he's a devotee. He knows that he is the Lord Krishna is that Supreme Narayan, right? He is that Supreme Narayan. He knows that. That is one line of thinking. Another line of thinking, assuming he didn't know that, is still asking this, is because he is asking on behalf of all the people who say, oh, Krishna, like 5,000 years back, he took, he came to this world or took birth, depend on whatever word they want to choose, depending on their conception of Lord Krishna in Mathura, and then he was transported to Vrindavan. He killed a lot of demons. He killed that oppressive ruler Kamsa. He relieved his parents. He engaged in the many battles. The prime one is Mahabharata, and then he left the world basically, right? So for those kind of people, and so that is the one conception people have, right? But Arjuna is asking from that conception that how am I to understand that you gave this knowledge, right? So it is important that this needs to be clarified, is because so that even those people who don't believe that Lord Krishna is God at least understand the reasoning behind that why Lord Krishna can be considered as God, because he's saying that the personality of God had said, many, many births both you and I have passed. I can remember all of them, but you cannot, O subduer of enemy. So that is how, because we normally people don't remember all their past births. People don't. Okay. But Krishna did. And that is how in one of his birth is probably not the right word, one of his appearance in the past, he gave this knowledge to sun god, Vivaswan. And then it came down, okay, because he remembers them, right? Well, Arjuna does not remember. So that is how, although I am unborn and he further explains that how these births are, how these births of Krishna are different from our births. He's saying, although I am unborn and my transcendental body never deteriorates, and although I am the Lord of all living entities, I still appear in every millennium in my original transcendental form. So his forms, right? Okay, or his form as Lord Krishna, every time he takes birth, okay, that is this in 1,000 cycles, 1,000 yuga cycle, he takes birth once, right? Every time he comes in the same form. It's not that he has different form in every yuga cycle. He comes in the same form of Lord Krishna. And same is true about his other transcendental forms also. Whenever he comes as Lord Ram, he comes as Lord Ram, the same form of Lord Ram, bluish green, right, hue. He always comes in that form, right? And it never deteriorates, right? It's because his body is transcendental, right? It's beyond only the bodies which are under the influence of modes of nature that deteriorate. His is not. So it never deteriorates. Okay. Whenever and why he comes that? He comes to whenever there is a decline in religious practice and rise of irreligion, then whoever are the perpetrators or who helps those irreligious practice to move, he annihilates them, those miscreants, and he reestablishes the principles of religion. Okay. So he is explaining this, and then he's going back to his original topic. He's saying that a person who knows the transcendental nature of his appearance and activities does not, upon leaving the body, take his birth in this material world. He's saying that, not directly related, but this is also one of the goals, right? They to attain the eternal abode. In verse 14, there is no work that affects me, nor do I aspire for the fruits of action. One who understands this truth about me also does not become entangled in the fruitive reactions of work. So what does lust do? Lust actually entangles you in the fruitive reactions of work. Because you enjoy that fruit, you like it, you again engage in that fruitive work. Right? But once a person knows that when Lord Krishna is doing this work, that does not affect him, okay, nor he ever does any work for, acquiring fruits of those actions, then that person, once he knows that in truth, okay, that person does not get entangled in the fruitive reactions of work. Right? And that's why he's saying all the liberated souls in the past, they engaged in this understanding of Lord Krishna's transcendental nature, should perform your duty in following their footsteps. So, how this happens is almost, think of it like a torchlight, okay? You take a torchlight, you are searching for something in your room. Room has become dark, searching for something. When you point a torchlight to a particular area where that object is, fortunately, by chance you did that, it is not that you get to see only that object. You get to see also the object surrounding it. Right? So, when you relish, the form of the Lord, immediately the pastimes of the Lord also comes into your mind. Most importantly, his instructions comes into your mind. And when you talk about pastimes, you also talk about the devotees. His devotees comes to your mind. Right? And when that comes, then the instructions given by the Lord, instructions given by the devotees, that also comes to your mind. And because they are transcendental, your consciousness is transported to a different level. The example I was giving between the right and wrong, right? The right, what is right actually, right? Whatever is right. This is, I'm the opposite side here. Okay, whatever is right, my right hand here, right, goes way up. Because the right actually came from the same Lord, Krishna. Right? He gave in the Vedas what is right and wrong. Because you're close to him, that light which the torchlight you are putting on him also illuminates that. And it goes to a very high level. You're getting that test at that time. So you are able to then subdue, the wrong thing. It is no more a struggle anymore between right and wrong. Because the struggle happened because your desires in your heart, the wrong desires in your heart, pushed the wrong thing up. But now because you are close to Lord Krishna's pastimes and forms, his instructions, they went up much ahead. And you are able to see these things as lower. But remember, this will go up only when you get taste of it. And that is what Lord Krishna talks about in the second chapter. Once you meditate and get the higher taste, and then of course, that process is a long process. Basically, that whole process in Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, right? Adav Shraddha, and then you go through, you come and associate with devotees, you take, initiation, you go through Anartha Nivritti stage, and then you develop, Nishtha, Ruchi, and, that it's a long step. The Anartha Nivritti in that whole process is a long step, because unless you have Anartha Nivritti, you will get little taste when you're close to other devotees. But when you're out of the touch of devotees and all, the taste will go away. That is a sign that you have not got that taste yet. Therefore, it is very important that you stay close to the devotees association as much as possible. During that Anartha Nivritti stage, staying close to the devotee is important even in the Bhava stage, as we know from the, the episode of Bharat Maharaj, right? If there were a devotees close to him, he would have told, hey, it is okay, seeing the different aspects of the deer on the shades of the moon, but you are deviating from your path. Right? Someone would have cautioned him, warned him, basically, right? So until you go to the prema stage, right? But the point is, when you go to the prema stage, you cannot live without the association of devotees. Prema stage is not just between the devotee and Lord Krishna. It is also the other devotees. That is the prema stage. How can you love someone when you don't love the people that lover also loves? Right? When you love Lord Krishna, you have to love his devotees, because it's a group thing, basically. It's not just Krishna, because then that is a more like, the Ashtanga yoga and the yogi is meditating on Lord Krishna. That is different, right? We are talking about prema. Prema means you have to have the association of other devotees. You cannot just have prema with Lord Krishna. It doesn't work. Prema means activities based on prema. So it is not just activities exchanged between you and Lord Krishna. That's also there, but it's also the activities you are exchanging with other devotees, right? So prema stage means the devotee just can't live without other devotees. That is a prema stage. And not because it is a necessity, it is because of the taste. It's because of the taste. Necessity is when you are going through the Anartha Nivritti stage. Then it is a necessity that you have the association of other devotees. In the Bhava and Prema stage, it is the taste which drives the association of other devotees. Now, the point I was trying to make here is that is what Lord Krishna is trying to say, that what does he mean by knowing his activities will help you conquer the lust? In truth, he's saying here. Yeah, one who knows that my appearance does not upon Veti Tattvata. In truth, the Veti Tattvata, in truth, they know this Divyam, transcendental Tattvata. In reality, they know it. Okay. So you have to have the realization of his Janma, Karma, Chame, Divyam. Once you have that, then you don't come back. Then you don't get entangled in the fruitive activity. Because when you know that, then you are actually also you are getting that higher taste, basically. You're getting that higher taste. And when you get the higher taste, you never follow, you don't like to do anything wrong. Unless sometimes you have to. Just like in this case, Lord Krishna is asking Arjuna to fight. Right? So And a necessary part of fighting is killing, basically, because this battle was different. And that is why Arjuna was so serious about this decision. He was not asking this question when he had to fight in the Virat war, when he was in hiding. And he defeated the same set of people. He defeated Bhishma, Drona, Kripacharya, Duryodhan, Karna, single-handedly, no soldiers, no army. Single-handedly defeated all of them along with their army. Unhesitatingly, he fought bravely there. Right? But here, this war is different. This war is until death. He knows that because Duryodhana is not going to give anything to, Pandavas. Not even a land with the tip of the needle. He said that, right? When Lord Krishna has at least give them 5 villages, he didn't agree to that, right? So he knew it was fight until death. And that is why he was so much more concerned, because he had to fight Guru Drona and fight Bhishma Pitama, whom he respected and loved very much, right? So here, of course, Lord Krishna is just talking about action and inaction and all that. But we are not going to go there. And just briefly, what he's trying to say, that when we act not for fruitive results, right, that is almost like a inaction, in the sense it does not generate any reaction. Okay, in that sense, you are acting, but you are actually, that's an inaction, because it does not generate reaction. Right? So that is what he's trying to say here. Okay, so here Lord Krishna is saying 2 things, and that will lay the foundation for the next chapter. I don't know whether I have time for this. So one who acts in devotional service, renouncing the fruits of his actions and whose doubts have been destroyed by transcendental knowledge, is situated factually in the self. Thus, he is not bound by the reactions of work, O conqueror of riches. Right? And then he's saying, therefore, the doubts which have arisen in your heart of ignorance should be slashed by the weapon of knowledge. If you look at the Sanskrit verse for this one, 41, he's saying, yoga shanyasta karmanam. So shanyasta karmanam can be interpreted 2 ways. You take sannyas from all the activities, or can also mean that leave all the fruits of activities, because karma also means reaction, which are the fruits of the activities. Right? Karma means the activity, karma also means the fruits of the activity. It represents both, and that's how tricky the Sanskrit language is. Right? And so Lord Krishna is saying that here. Right? And after saying this, in the next verse, he's saying, Ati Toshtistha Bharata. Stand up to fight. So that in the previous word, that Shanyasta Karmanam, Arjuna interpreted as take sannyas, and then you are saying, asking me to fight. How he found it contradictory. And that is what Krishna will clarify in the next chapter. Right? How to act in Krishna consciousness. Because Lord Krishna was actually not saying him to take sannyas. He's saying, try to not focus, or sannyas means renounce the fruitive result, not renounce the activity. That is what he was trying to say. So then both the verses in the previous chapter don't contradict each other anymore. Right? So that is what Arjuna is saying. Arjuna said, oh Krishna, first of all, you asked me to renounce work, and then again you recommend work with devotion. Now will you kindly tell me definitely which of the 2 is more beneficial? Right? So ask me to renounce work, that is the verse number 41 in previous chapter. And recommend work with devotion, he is saying, armed with yoga, you fight. Right? And also in the 41st verse, also in translation is recommend work with devotion is there. So asking to renounce work and then work with devotion, how is it possible? Actually, Lord Krishna was not telling to renounce work. He was telling to renounce the fruits of the work. But even if we assume that he's saying renounce work, is Lord Krishna saying, okay, that is also okay if that is how you understood it. But still the work in devotion is better. Okay. So so we have 4 more minutes. I'll just quickly check if there are any questions there. Yeah. So he has a question, but let me just check Facebook. And okay, so someone has asked a question in the YouTube also. Okay, so let me take the question of Momita Mataji. Momita Mataji, please go ahead with your question.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna.
So, as we discussed at length about lust,
Mhm.
I was wondering, is fear also a result of lust? And for a devotee who has shelter of, Krishna consciousness and association, how would you, guide them to deal with their fears, like especially like in the material world when we live, we have certain fears. So should we, like you said, right, to deal with lust, we kind of get a higher taste, inculcate a higher taste that helps us to overcome our lust to a certain extent, restraint. How do we deal with fear?
So first, let me clarify this. Higher taste actually comes in stages. Okay, so it's not that it comes suddenly like a flood. That can also happen. Okay, but very rarely. Mostly it comes in stages, right? So the thing is, the reason why you are able to tolerate some of the urges, even though you don't have the association, like when you're going to work and all, certain urges you had from your past experience or past test, you're able to tolerate this, is because you have some test, okay? Some test, that higher test, you're able to tolerate it, right? Those urges. Now, the question about, so you are asking, what about fears? So one there is a place in 16th chapter, Lord Krishna, he's talking about that it's a fearlessness is a first divine quality, fearlessness. And Prabhupada is writing in purport, what exactly is fearlessness? Fearlessness is actually, true fearlessness comes from faith in Krishna. Now the question is, that kind of faith, what he's talking about, is the faith with which a sannyasi moves. So most of us are not, we have our material world, we have our material responsibilities and all. So we have some conception about these things in our mind. And sometimes many of these conceptions are also reinforced in a very subtle way, even in our devotional circle, right? So we start understanding, yeah, we should have a job, we should have, we have to take care of our children so that they have sufficient knowledge and skill set so they can survive in this world, right? And that fear will have, right? We cannot, and it's actually taking it to the extreme is unhealthy, but a little bit of fear is required, because otherwise we will not be able to fulfill our responsibilities, right? We cannot become sadhu babas, right? We cannot do that, right? So we will have that fear, but more we contemplate on that aspect, more we will have, that fear will go stronger, okay? So it is better, and that is where Lord Krishna is saying that in the 18th chapter, he will say that many devotees say that when I chant japa, we should think only about Krishna's pastimes. That's not true, because that's what not Lord Krishna is saying in the 18th chapter to Arjuna. Right? Arjuna, to his saying, in this battle you are performing, always remember me. He's just saying the opposite. So it is okay, when you're doing japa, because we have not relieved ourselves of all our responsibilities. Right? So responsibilities are there. So fear will be there if we are able to, fulfill our responsibility or not. That fear will be there because of some situation that happened in our life, right? And maybe we lost a job or something happened, right? So that fear will be there. That's the healthy fear. So we are able to fulfill the responsibility. When we are fulfilling the responsibility, there is no harm in asking Krishna for guidance. If you open a channel with Krishna, Krishna is not going to speak to you like I am speaking to you, okay? But there will be thoughts that will surface in your mind, right? If you are in doubt, then you go to senior devotees whom you take in confidence. You have to find your confidential mentors and other devotees, the devotees who don't disclose what you disclose to them privately. You need to have that. And then you discuss with them if you are in doubt. Most of the time, my experience has seen that, when I pray to Krishna, the help does come. Okay. So we have to accept it and we have to move. Okay. Sometimes we have to tolerate our situation also. Sometimes that situation wherever we are in may be a prolonged one, but you have to keep trying. Right? We have to keep trying. You have to keep trying enthusiastically. Fear is always not bad. I mean, I will just stop there. But extreme fear is bad. You should not get depressed because of fear, or we should not get morbid. Morbid fear is not good. That is why we are in those fearful situations. When we recognize, we pray to Krishna, basically make our chanting even stronger and ask for help. Keep working also, because if you don't keep working towards, overcoming that fear, Krishna will think this person is only asking for help. He is not serious. So you have to keep working and ask for help. He will give guidance. I'm saying my experience, but that is what I mean, and it corroborates with Lord Krishna's statement there in Bhagavad Gita, 18th chapter towards them, which Lord Krishna is saying, keep fighting and keep remembering me, keep me in your mind. That is what he means. When he says keep me in your mind, he's not saying keeping a picture of me in your mind. No, he's saying ask for help from me. I will give you guidance. Okay. Is that
Thank you, Prabhu.
okay, Mataji? Does that help?
Yeah, that helps. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you, Mataji. Let me
Thank
see.
you.
So Anuradha Mataji asks, so Prabhuji, mistakes are done because the person is seated in lust. Am I right? Mistakes are done because of multiple reasons, and lust could be one of those. It is always not because of lust. It sometimes can be because of our understanding also. Mistakes. Mistakes, or if you're trying to say mistakes means sins, it can be lack of knowledge also, sins. But even after having knowledge of right and wrong, if you're still committing that sin, that is because of lust. I hope I clarified your question, Anuradha Mataji. Yeah. Yeah. I think we don't have any more questions here. Quickly check. So thank you, devotees, for joining the Wednesday class. I will now stop sharing, and we'll meet again in the next Wednesday. We'll host again, and please come join. Thanks a lot for taking time from your busy schedule and joining this class.
Thank you, Prabhuji. Vanchakalpatarubhyascha
सकलपतरुभ्यश्च
कृपासिन्धुभ्यश्च
कृपासिन्धुभ्यैव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः। जय शिला प्रभुपाद।
जय श्री